The new 28-point peace plan for Ukraine by US President Donald Trump, which has been called a working document, has several points that critics consider favorable to Russia, which launched military operations against Ukraine in February 2022, requiring Ukraine to relinquish ownership of Russian occupied territories and refrain from joining NATO while limiting its military capabilities. According to the plan, Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk, along with those areas that Russian President Vladimir Putin's forces failed to occupy, will all be recognized as Russian territory as a matter of fact. Whereas, according to Ukraine's position, Russia has held an unlawful control over Crimea since 2014. Ukraine will also have to agree to hold elections within 100 days. However, the plan also includes an outline for comprehensive reconstruction of Ukraine, in which $10 billion of frozen Russian assets will be spent on development and investment. On the other hand, European Union countries appear hesitant to implement this peace plan, while their foreign policy head, Kaja Kallas, said at a foreign ministers' meeting, for any plan to be effective, it is necessary that Ukrainians and Europeans agree on it, while we have heard no concessions from Russia. Not only that, but the US president warned Ukraine to accept this peace plan by November 27th, otherwise, it will be denied access to US intelligence and weapons. Here, my analysis is that European countries, as usual, will make noise and, while speaking against the US, may even announce going to the last extent to support Ukraine. However, in the end, Donald Trump's decision will prevail, and it is expected that in the coming days, peace will return to Ukraine, which currently presents a war torn, desolate, and ruined scene. The background of this conflict is such that at the end of the Cold War, the US and Western countries gave Russia the indication that NATO would not include former Soviet Union states in its membership. On the contrary, NATO expanded with US support, and successively the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and other countries joined. At every stage, when NATO included these states, the alarm bells for Russia sounded louder than before. Russia never wanted NATO to gradually install its lethal weapons in these countries. That is, neither should those Ukrainian territories adjoining Russia remain with Ukraine, nor should NATO's lethal weapons be installed on Russia's doorstep. Today, Putin has almost succeeded in protecting his will and national security, and it has become as clear as daylight to the US and Europe that the Ukrainian president, despite all aid, will not be able to save his state territories from Russia, and the entire country is on the verge of being lost. This is why Donald Trump, according to his insight, has succeeded in convincing Putin on the 28-point plan. Now the Ukraine issue appears likely to move toward resolution in the coming weeks. It has become clear to the whole world that Donald Trump, who has already taken credit for ending 8 wars, will certainly deserve further recognition after resolving such a complex issue as Ukraine. It seems that Donald Trump is addressing the world's most deadly conflict, which hangs like a sword over the earth between two nuclear armed countries, and which Trump has mentioned dozens of times, saying that if he had not stopped a war between India and Pakistan, this limited war could have turned into a nuclear war. Trump even openly said that in such a case, nuclear dust and particles would reach Los Angeles within 7 days. According to scientists' research, even a limited nuclear war between India and Pakistan would be catastrophic. Nuclear smoke produced by a few small atomic weapons would cover the entire Earth within just 2 weeks and remain in the stratosphere, the atmospheric layer 12 to 50 kilometers above the Earth, for several years. This would reduce global maize, wheat, and rice production by 10 to 40%. Since global food reserves are sufficient only for 60 days, gradually 1 to 2 billion people could die of hunger. In the case of a full scale nuclear war, a nuclear winter would occur and 90% of the Earth's population could be wiped out. No country would be safe, whether it is involved in the war or not, whether it has nuclear weapons or not, or even if it is thousands of miles away from the explosions. In fact, the world's leaders, scholars, scientists, and wise minds are aware that in the event of an India Pakistan war, the nuclear sword hanging over their necks will remain until the conflict ends. I, in light of these facts and logic, am inclined to analyze that due to Donald Trump's approach and the threats facing the world in the near future, all efforts will be devoted to resolving the Kashmir issue, that is, India's continuous insistence that Kashmir is a bilateral matter has now reached the point where it could become a matter of life and death for the world. Therefore, the Kashmir issue is now moving toward resolution under a multilateral plan. It would not be surprising if, in the coming time, just as points were formulated for Gaza and Ukraine, the Modi government is compelled to accept a plan with a few points and move toward the right of self determination for Kashmiris. In this, the survival of the world from nuclear threats is also implicit. And if it happens, the lives of the people of India and Pakistan will also benefit naturally. And these two countries, which have all kinds of capabilities and talent, can begin progressing toward development and prosperity. With the resolution of the Kashmir issue, Donald Trump's name will also be immortalized in history forever.